it's laid back as usual.
Yeah,
So, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing very good. How about you?
Good. Yeah, it's been a really busy summer for me. So, I
Yeah,
just like right now I'm catching my breath, it seems. Yeah. So, how have you been? You said you were working on some things.
yeah. Well, I'll fill. I mean, you know a little bit more than most, but I am taking some pretty serious steps in the real estate space, and had some pretty strong conversations today on some new partnerships that are the response in what I'm building is has been very positive. So that's exciting. It's like, and this is probably a maybe good segue into compassion fatigue, which I know is what we're going to be talking about. But um, when you're starting something new, it can be a bit nerve wracking because it's like this new thing and you're bringing it to life and you're like, how are people going to respond to it? Are they going to like it? Are they going to hate it? Or is the scrutiny going to show
Hmm.
up in a way that's really uncomfortable? So have kind of been experiencing quite a bit of that, in this phase, in terms of just the uncertainty around it, of like, people are going to hate what I think is, what I'm bringing, to the table here. And but it's
Yeah.
been the opposite of that for me, so far. It's
Good.
like it's been very positive, and um yeah, I'm really excited about it. So
Cool.
yeah.
And, you know, are you cool with us with revealing this? Because I don't know how many people you revealed it to. So it's going to be to my 320 people to follow.
Well,
Is
I mean,
I can edit
yeah,
it out.
it's I mean, it's how I mean, if I reveal it, it's going to probably overwhelm the whole conversation because it's a lot that I'm bringing to the market. It's the
I just
I'll say.
mean, sorry, I just mean like, are you cool with letting them know like the gist so far?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll give you a quick like 5 minutes. This is probably a good exercise for me to like condense down everything into like a quick overview. So it's like, so I'm going into the real estate industry. I got my license as an agent. I'm actually taking I'm taking the test Monday. I finished the course, and there's a reason that I need to get my license to do what I'm intending to do, which is to build and launch a online, well, not just online, it's both online and real life, but it's a concierge for homeowners that supports homeowners through all 5 stages of homeownership. So there's 5 stages. There's buying soon, settling in, upgrading, maintaining, and selling soon. So like at any given time, you're going to be involved in any of those 5 stages. And the gap I've noticed, there's a confidence gap that's become evident to me as a homeowner and to other people I've realized through conversing and engaging with, is that, when you're working with an agent, you're just working with them through buying and selling. But those other stages, the support just kind of drops off and you're on your own.
Mhm. Oh
So
yeah.
this platform I'm building, that support doesn't drop off. There's actually support pieces I'm building in through each of those 5 stages. So it
Ooh.
closes that confidence gap for homeowners, and it's required a lot of like, okay, when you're maintaining, what are the things that show up for you as a homeowner, and how can we fill those gaps to where you do close confidence. So the thing that's kind of cool about it is my skill set, and this has been my problem for a long time now, is that I have skill in creativity and design, system building, and entrepreneurship. But there's also this like real estate financial piece that's been, I went to school for finance. Like that's what I studied. That's
Mhm.
where I have a huge background in finance and economics and in real estate too, just through the banking side.
Oh.
And that's never been expressed in my entrepreneurship. So like this endeavor into real estate actually expresses everything that I have to offer in terms of all the skill, like my full spectrum of my skill set. So it'll be
Wait.
interesting to see, to see how this like fully manifests. Dr. Jeff Spencer says like a true champion is somebody who's a manifester of their gifts. And so this is kind of like okay, well, if I'm really going to manifest all my gifts, then it needs to go into this space, because this is really the only way I can think of that fully manifests all my gifts and what I can bring to the table. So yeah, that's the gist of what it is. Of course, it's, it's a bit more complex, not complex. I don't want to use that word, but more involved and nuanced in terms of how I'm doing it and how I'm bringing it to market.
Yeah,
But that'll all come to fruition in the next couple of months as I finish the build out and launch of the new brand. So yeah,
neat. Well, you'll just have to come back on and tell us once it's launched and you
yeah,
want to share all that. It
yeah, of
sounds amazing.
course.
And actually that statement, so the true champion manifests all of your gifts. It looks like I wrote like half of what you said.
Yeah, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. Like I don't know the exact words that Dr. Jeff uses, but it's basically, it's like you're a manifester of your gifts. Like you know how to take your gifts and manifest them in reality. And um, so yeah, it's like thinking about your skill and your resources, knowing yourself, right, um, and knowing what you have to offer, and how can you take that and really manifest it in reality to
Mm-hmm.
make an impact, serve humanity, all the things that we aspire to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you got to take inventory on that. It's like, what do I have to offer, and
Mm-hmm.
how can I harmonize that skill and everything in a way that um, that creates the biggest impact for myself, for the people I'm serving, everything. And it's almost like more of an art than a science. I think, it's like there's not really a framework or a formula or anything. It's just a harmonization of it all that you just pull together, and like, this is where it goes and this is how it all works together. And there is no, that's why it's like it's like you would talk about that in my mind. I'm like, there's like a 3-hour conversation that I could really go through the harmonization of all this into, into why it is, and how it's how it's going to show up. So yeah, just maybe, yeah, interesting way to kind of open up here about
It is.
manifesting our gifts. And
Yeah,
and then
it
of
totally
course,
goes. It totally
yeah,
goes with what I have to talk about, actually. It's a great segue.
cool. Yeah. And Bree and I like sat down for like hours to figure out this plan on how we're going to open this conversation up, which is
Nope.
absolutely not. We just like, let's just, we'll get in here and we'll figure it out as we go. So here we are.
I will quote Scott. He says, and paraphrasing too, that the best conversations are the ones we don't have mapped out, actually. So,
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's actually good we don't have it mapped out because it'll just work. I know it will.
That's right.
Because you just naturally opened up to actually, I've been thinking today, I have been trying to map what I was going to say, but I can't seem to be able to get it on paper. And maybe that actually goes with what you just said, that it's more of an art than a science. Like, it's really difficult to describe
Hmm.
how, like, I've been working on my offer. I think you and I are on similar kinds of paths. They're in different directions, but they're still in a similar direction in a way too. It's like, I think we're on the path to self-actualization is
Hmm.
what we're both working on, is like finding our unique paths with our businesses. And so that goes in line with what you're working on in the real estate realm. It goes in line with what I'm working on in my business coaching business, where I'm, trying to figure out how to explain my forever offer that I found, and I guess today is kind of me announcing that. Um, so yeah, so you opened up with, it's like a manifestation of our gifts so Dr. Jeff Spencer talks about that. I need to listen to him more. He sounds like he says a lot of great things.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, it is more of an art than a science. How I'm writing about it is I'm writing a chapter at a time about the compassion reset quest, which goes into compassion fatigue and how it shows up not just with therapists, but with all kinds of helpers. If we have like a helper heart or what do others call heartpreneur or heart-centered people. And sometimes, we give a lot and we pour ourselves out. And sometimes
Yeah.
different stressful things show up in our businesses and throw us off, and we end up burning out and then, want to burn the whole thing down, the whole business. Um, you know, anyway, that's kind of the start of it. Any thoughts so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, I see it show up like compassion fatigue. I see show up in everywhere, really. It's like whether you're a solopreneur or you're building a team,
Mhm,
you get these callings that show up for support and to help somebody,
mhm,
um and it could be in a minor, in a small way where it seems small. It's like, hey, I'm trying to figure out, or maybe I just need a conversation, or I need a person that can I can vent to, right? Or you're speaking to a staff member, maybe you're an employer, or maybe um, you're just in a community and there's people that are seeking help. So you pour yourself out to people because
mhm,
that's who you are. You're a person that's there to show up and solve problems and help people where you feel like you can be helpful.
mhm.
But then you get fatigued by it because you're pouring so much out of you to others that there's like nothing left for yourself.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's the thing that like really shows up for me. And we had, and there's one other thing I'll point out too, and this is kind of the conversation that we had. I guess it's been weeks ago now. I don't know when it was, but I remember I was walking in my front yard talking, because I do that sometimes. We're just like walking and talking, and it's like helping spin up the neurons. I just remember that moment, and I was telling you, I was like, there's like the business brain and there's the creative brain, and they never get along with each other. And you have like your business brain is kind of the strict one. It's the one that tries to keep order and it's it's like, hey, like, we still got to turn a profit here, we still got to make money, remember this is a business, and we need to do that in order for this to grow and sustain itself. But then the creative brain's like very free spirited, and it's like, yeah, but like, think about all these cool things we can do, like, don't get money involved, like money is going to make it,
We
like, why
hate
would we
money.
get, we hate money, like, no, I don't need money.
No.
And then your business brain's like, I know, I get it, but we still need money to like grow this, because without money there is no, I guess, a very important resource for growth in a business. If you don't have money, then like you just kind of like
Just a
eventually
hobby.
yeah, it's just a hobby. But like, well, it's always a side thing, and you're always trying to juggle 100 things at once, and then eventually you get to a point where you're just like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. And so the
Mhm,
creative brain, and I dealt with this when I had my lighting business, like, all the time. When you sell
mhm,
create, this is also like me going into real estate's a way to kind of protect myself a little bit from that, because up to this point I've always sold creative services. And it's
mm.
like, I constantly struggle with that when somebody comes to me and are like, I want to do this, this, and this. It's like, that sounds amazing, I want to help you build that. But like, realistically, if I'm going to help you build this to its entirety, it's going to suck a lot of my energy out. And I know the right thing to do is to charge. I guess the right thing to do is to charge a certain amount. But if I do that, maybe it doesn't economically make sense with where you're at today.
Mhm.
However, I really want to do this, but if I do this and if I continue that cycle, I'm just going to burn out, because there's not enough funding to come in to fully support that type of service. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
So that
It
that shows up
does.
too, like with compassion fatigue, like when you're selling a creative service, like you're constantly battling with, somebody comes to you and maybe they're a startup and they're new, and it's like there's only so much funding there, and there's only
Mhm.
so much risk they should take, but there's like this big thing that they want to build, and they need support along the way. And then you're kind of like seen as like the creative person that can come in to help fulfill on that. And
Yeah.
so anyway, those are some things that show up for me when it comes to compassion fatigue as a creator and as somebody who provides creative service. Excuse
Yeah.
me. It can be you get that battle, that creative
That
mind and business brain just does not, they do not like each other and they fight each other.
Yeah, that totally aligns with actually one of the theories I think I mentioned. I was maybe going to talk about internal family systems theory today. So, and I'm trying to separate it in a way that it's not, we're not focusing on therapy, we're focusing on business coaching. So, disclaimer, this is not therapy, this is business coaching, that type of thing. Anyway, um, so in that theory, there's the belief that we have parts within us, and we're kind of talking about that right now, like the creative self, the business self or professional self. I'll add the therapist self, as a therapist, you add whatever flavor you're working in. And then within it's what is that? It's almost fractal within the business self. There's this self and this aspect and that type of thing. You could go forever.
Hmm.
Um, but the actual theory with therapy is that there are managers within us that try to organize our space and time and our lives. There are firefighters that try to manage the ups and downs with feelings and
Hmm.
overwhelmed feelings and that type of thing. And then there are exiles that we try to block that can get overwhelming and angry and all that type of thing. We're not going to go into exiles or anything like that today, but this kind of plays in, like let's just focus on the creative self that you brought up and the business self. And the
Yep.
creative self was the part I had suppressed and didn't even realize. Um, I had not, I stopped playing guitar. I used to play in a band. I had stopped painting. I stopped doing all the things that made me me. I also didn't realize I was neurodivergent. Um, and for various reasons, I think I grew up in a system that they didn't know what that was yet, you know. So some of finding my business, finding my brand, finding my path was finding myself, but I also had to let out the creative self, and realize I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to be this super professional, like stiff person that everyone was trying to fit me into in the different businesses I worked in. Like, I didn't have to be that, and
Hmm.
who wants to be that,
Yeah.
you can add a little fun, but not so much fun that we don't make any money. So you're, like bringing in balance, like between the professional self and the creative self. And I think you talked about that. Like, yeah, there needs to be some scaffolding.
Yeah.
And that's important with neurodivergence too, and with all people. But anyway, I'm talking a lot. Does that,
Yeah.
what do you think? Any reflections or thoughts on any of that?
Yeah. I definitely see where things can kind of, you think the word you used was fractal,
Mhm.
right? And you almost develop these different uh, relationships that you have with whatever it is that you're creating or you're involved in. If you're a um, if you're if you're a therapist, there's a relationship that you have with that profession, and in that relationship there's certain stigmas that kind of attach to it, which can in some ways like pull you away from the person that you are, because
Mhm.
you feel like you got to put yourself in this box of identity, this identity box. I'm a therapist, which means I need to look like this and I need to show up like this and I need to be like this. And
Cardigan.
right, it's right. It's like the cardigan and the, yeah, whatever. And it's like, but that's not, it's not completely me, but I've got to assume this identity. And
Mhm.
I remember years ago, this is actually kind of a funny story. There was a bank that I was involved in, and speaking with the CEO, and I was like, oh, I noticed like there's so many vice presidents in this bank. Like everybody was like vice president, like everybody. Like why do you have so many VPs?
Hmm.
And the CEO was like, oh, well, it's because when people like, it's like an ego thing. It's like when people put vice president next to their name, it makes them feel like they're more like even just a loan officer. Like every loan officer was a vice president.
We should write that on our names on here. Well, see
And
what happens.
but it was an identity thing. It's like, oh, I'm the vice pre like when oh, I'm the vice president of and vice president and lender or whatever. And
Mm,
it kind of like raised, I guess, in their own heads, like raised their perception of their own value. And
mm,
but it
right.
wasn't, but it didn't make sense in terms of like an organizational chart. It's like everybody's a vice president from the top. From the top and the bottom. There was, but so it's an example of, you see this like identity that starts to show up for, um, I guess people start to put themselves in these boxes of identity, and you begin to lose yourself a
Yep.
little bit, depending on the profession you're in. Every profession is going to have, different rules, so to speak, of what that person's supposed to look like and show up like and how they're supposed to be. And
Hmm.
so how do you balance that against who you are, and how you reconcile that against who you are?
Yeah,
You um,
it's a good question. And I think it's a lot of self-reflection. Um, in my dissertation, where we looked at what are the things that help therapists, and I think a lot of these apply to everybody, if you're experiencing burnout or compassion fatigue. Um, Self-reflection was really helpful. And we're going back to that. Like we've done a lot of self-reflection in our businesses and lives. Um,
mhm.
and it helps. Like what does work in this business? What isn't? Not paying super attention to all the feelings, but like what isn't aligned, what is working, what isn't, and paying attention to how does this business work with my life and the way I want my life to be. And Scott often, asks us in the beginning of coaching meetings, what are you optimizing for? And I'm always stumbling on that answer. Like, what am I optimizing for?
Yeah.
um, you know, and that's a really important question. I think I sort of have the answer, but so self-reflection really important, self-compassion really important. That was something that came up too. Um,
Hmm.
Realizing, kind of skip into the end of the dissertation, I can heal, realizing that I don't have to stay stuck, that there are strategies forward, you know, and I'm not alone. I can ask for help, reducing that stigma again, and I think that was a lot of what helped me is not surrounding necessarily myself with more therapists, friends who get it, though I did do that, but surrounding myself with other business owners who got it, like you and Scott and Allison Ridey. We affectionately call each other business besties. Chris, you know, Fothrop. Am I saying his name right? Do you know how to say his last name?
um, don't ask me to try to pronounce anything that's somewhat complicated, because I'm from Southwest Virginia, and in Southwest Virginia we don't use all letters of the alphabet. So we say something instead of something, so we talk. So our pronunciation is not, that's not the strong suit over here, but I think you got it right. I think you got it right.
That's great.
um
That's so great. Anyway, you're funny.
yeah. the So my question is this. um when so getting back to compassion fatigue here, and the thing that shows up to me is like you've got to establish boundaries around what it is that you do and who you do it with and how you operate, because if you don't put those boundaries in place, you will get fatigued and you will burn out, and it's just inevitable.
Mm,
So as it shows up, as things shows up, where or first off, like establishing boundaries, how do we think about establishing boundaries in a way where because I think there's like a lot of like when you do start establishing boundaries, you start to get fearful around that a little bit because you're like, well, if I put boundaries here, then am I going to come off cold? Am I going to come off, unapproachable? Like, so there's all that fear of uncertainty that shows up with how you'll get perceived when you do establish those boundaries.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you like the question I have is, how can you establish boundaries in a way where you protect your energy, but you also don't become misunderstood by others who need your support?
Mm,
They respect the boundaries that you have set for yourself,
mm,
and they say, it's like you're able to still support people, but you're also doing it in a way that respects your boundaries and protects your energy.
that's really good. And Scott and I talk about this a lot. What is that word he uses? Um, oh, he talks about don't be promiscuous with your time. That we don't need to be giving away, like with the compassion reset. I need to put a boundary with that. I can't just offer prompts for free inevitably, not inevitably. Indefinitely is the word. Like there needs to be
Yeah.
a limit. So I'm working on that. In my therapy business, I had great boundaries. I did not start with great boundaries. I thought I had to answer the phone 24/7. I didn't realize I could hire an assistant to help. I didn't realize, that I could be choosy with different contracts I signed up with. And some of it was I had to learn different things through doing, kind of like the arena model, like you have to try and then see what happens. And I didn't even know that existed then, but I was a go-getter and a let's try things kind of person. I think I was talking with Scott on his podcast about when I started, I didn't know how to get clients, how to get my name out there very well. I had Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
I think I had a website, but I called up this consultant or coaching group that worked with therapists, and they quoted me $10,000 to get some help with getting my business out there and making some money. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I was crying after that phone call. I was like, this just seems impossible. But I regrouped and I decided I'm just going to watch tons or not listen to, not watch podcast episodes and just kind of figure this out like hardcore
Yep.
DIYer, I'm going to do this and figure it out. And I did. And my therapy business is great now. I learned how to set better boundaries. I have great support. I have therapist business besties where we help each other, and just kind of guide each other as we go. We can vent to each other and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
within reason about business stuff. Anyway, did I answer your question?
Well, it's not so much my question. It's just the question that I think a lot of people come to realize for themselves when they are pursuing anything of significance that is, well, I mean, not even just things of significance, but just in general in life. Like, you're setting boundaries, and how do you do that in a way that um, that protects your energy while also you're trying to protect your energy, but you're also trying to make sure that you're not cold and unapproachable. Because I think there's that association when I'm putting a boundary here, don't call me after 5 p.m. I'm not going to be available. You don't want to necessarily like, don't call me after 5 p.m. You don't have to say that, but just after 5 p.m., it's like the sign gets flipped around from open to close, and we're closed for business at this point.
Right.
And and the thing is, like, when you're first starting something new, the tendency is to like be promiscuous with your time and your support, as Scott would say,
Mhm.
um and let me ask you this. So, like, when you first got started, because I think about this sometimes, it's like, do you there's kind of that phase of like proving yourself to a market. Like you're the new person. I'm the new person right now in this real estate space. Like nobody knows who I am at
Yeah.
all.
Right.
And, I've started having conversations, and I'm in that proving myself phase. And
Right.
I went, when I had my lighting business, it was the same thing. The very first thing I did was, they used to have these thing called style shoots where you would like, they did them for portfolio purposes. It's like these vendors would come together. You had the event designer, the florist, and the rental company, and maybe the cake person, and like they would just kind of like style this like area, and then a photographer would come in and take photos, and they would try to submit them for to get them published in different magazines. And I remember when I first got started, I was like, nobody knows who I am, really. Like nobody knows anything about me. And I'm trying to see if I'm trying to penetrate into the market here so I can get respect. And people think like, yeah, go to this guy for lighting. This is a good resource. So the first thing I did, I was like, I'll just organize a styled shoot. I'll find the best people in the market that do what they do, and I'll pull this together, and we'll take photos, and then people get a little taste of what it's like to work with me. We got some photos that shows the work, and then we'll see where this goes. And the next thing you know, people like keep wanting to host styled shoots, and it's a big time suck, and the first one went really well. I got some business, and then I kept getting, hey, we're doing this styled shoot. And then after a few years, we're like, you know what? Like, I can't keep doing these styled shoots. Like now I got to put a boundary in. I can't make myself that available anymore.
Right.
This worked in the beginning because I needed to do that to be able to prove myself to the market that I'm somebody worthy of somebody else's time, or really somebody else's money, to invest into what I do to bring to the table. Same thing in web design. It's like the first thing I did was like, I'm just going to give my time away. I'm going to do stuff for free because I'm trying to prove myself that I have what it takes to do the job. So, but then you're like, if you're not careful and you don't like, you got to eventually put boundaries around that before, like, as you start becoming more established. And it almost sounds like maybe you had a similar experience in your therapy when you're starting in therapy, where you were very promiscuous with your time and just giving it away. Whoever wants it, I'm here to prove that I have what it takes to do a good job, and whatever it takes is what I'm going to do to prove to everybody here that I can do the work and I'm awesome at it. And then eventually people are like, got it. Like, you are awesome at it. And if you're going to keep giving stuff away, we're going to keep taking it because you're amazing at it. And then, but then it's like, how do you transition from that to, all right, everybody, like, got to start saying no a little bit, because now I'm getting too busy. And if I don't put boundaries, I'm going to get burned out. So like, there's that transitional phase of going from you proved yourself to like, now you got to protect your time and make sure that, you're not getting taken. Not that people take advantage of you necessarily, but if you're going to
purposeful, usually, but sometimes it does happen, accidentally.
Yeah. It's not like, it doesn't come from like bad intention. It's just, you make yourself available so people will take the availability. And,
So how did I like kind of rework that? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, for you, as you've kind of gone through that transition from proving yourself to proven, that transition from proving to proven, because once it's proven, then that's when my belief is this: when you're proving, this is my position. I think when you're proving yourself, the gloves are off. You do whatever you can to prove yourself. Like, bust into that market, make yourself available. That's how I do it. At least I am like the juggernaut. Like, I can't be stopped. Like, once I start running, I can't be stopped. I'm just like, everybody, look at all this amazing stuff that I could do. I can build this and I can do that. And eventually they're like, oh, like, let's go work with this guy. Look at all the stuff that he's doing. And then like, eventually, like, you become proven, meaning like people are like coming to you, and like there's not like, eventually you're like, I don't need a market at all. Like there's so much people coming here like that needs support, that
Yeah.
now I got to start establishing those boundaries,
Yeah.
because if I don't, like, I can only do that like juggernaut act but for so long
Because you will
until,
burn out if you keep it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So going from proving to proven, there's that transitional period.
Yeah.
um Now, not everybody, I'm not saying like that's what people need to do, like go be the juggernaut and just like bust into a market and just start. um
Hmm.
I, but I think like a degree of that is almost needed, because there's options. I remember when I was like getting started in lighting, I was talking, there was this photographer, he was like world renowned and very like one of the top photographers in the area. This is in Richmond, so this is like bigger city, like very high level. I remember I was talking to him and he looked at me and he said, if you want to break in this market, you need to show people something that they've never seen before,
Mm.
because it is a hard nut to crack, and everybody's got their relationships. And he was like really stern with me, like very aggressive, just like no BS. Like, if you want to break in this market, you need to show something that they've never seen before, because otherwise nobody's going to call you. Like, they already got
Mm.
options. So if you want to get in that mix, you need to show something that they never seen before. So I said, all right, here comes the juggernaut.
From Blue
It's gonna,
Ocean
yeah, yeah,
marketing too. Hmm.
yeah, differentiating yourself, of course. And that's
Hmm.
and then you get tired after a while, and you've got to, like, hey, I don't got to do this anymore. I've proven
Yeah.
myself, like now I'm in the mix. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like, yeah, how did I do that? I think well, one, I started to notice how I was feeling. I was feeling stressed. I talked about it. I turned to friends, therapy friends, my own therapist. I got my own consultation and support through some cases I didn't know what to do or how to better establish boundaries. So all of that was really helpful. And that's what we came up with too in my dissertation, that, working on the stigma that it's okay to ask for help. Us therapists don't have to have it all figured out. And the same for, I mean, that kind of fits all kinds of work. Like, you don't have to do it all yourself. And I think that's
Mhm.
kind of what we're doing in the nerdiverse, is like, even though we're all working in different fields, we're working alongside each other. And there are some commonalities that, hey, I get it that this was stressful, though I'm not in that field. We're here to vent about it and do meme wars and, send back and forth office gifs, or however you call that, or Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, adding the fun back to business, I think, is part of managing burnout, setting boundaries. With it, though. I think it
Mhm.
involves setting hours, work hours, watching tech, which you and I both have been working on reducing. We talked about like social media time. Like, I think you're not even on LinkedIn, and I mean, except occasionally, or X. I'm rarely
Yeah.
on those two now. Looking at where is our time going? Yeah, setting the business hours, like, okay, I don't need to respond to this email at 9 p.m. You know, why am I doing that? I can
Yeah.
ask my assistant to call them back. I don't need to. I don't need to do free consultations anymore because I have enough business. I don't need to do that. Like, I don't have time to do it anymore, you know? Um, I used to do those in the beginning, but I just don't have time now. And I think with the second business, I have to be very careful with my time, because I could burn out with it because I got the other business going. So I could
Yeah.
be offering all this free stuff in this other business and then be exhausted again. So that's some of why I'm doing the asynchronous coaching, because I think that gives me time to think about what I want to say and what I think might be helpful to that person. They can also, sign up for a call if they need it, but it's not like we have to meet to work on it. No, it could be, messages here and there, or Google Docs or Discord, whatever's.
Yeah.
Anyway, boundaries and the ways we need it. Scaffolding, I think, is part of it, like mapping our time. Anyway, I'm rambling now.
Well, I'll tell you, last night, I was watching a movie with my boys. That's like a big thing we love to do. We love to watch movies. And
That's cute.
and it's funny, my oldest son, he's like an old soul, so he likes 80s movies and like older movies. I'm like, really? All right,
That's
that's
so
cool, because
great.
that's my flavor too. So I'm like
Uh-huh.
here
They're the
for it.
best.
And we were watching a movie, and I like picked up my phone, and I do this just like not even thinking. It's just like you pick up the phone, email, refresh what's coming through the email. And an email came through, and it's from a client I worked with like around the beginning of the year. And there was a question about something with like analytics. I don't do anything with analytics on websites. I'm like, if you need analytics help, like there's a person I can send you to. Like, we're design development. Analytics is a whole other beast. And he had a question about analytics, and I immediately like put the phone down and like run into my room where like the computer is, and like get on, and like I'm like looking at stuff. I'm like,
Oh
I stopped
no.
myself. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like watching a movie with my kids, and I'm like running into the other room to like,
Like
and it's like he
like
does,
you had to put out a fire or something. Like
but it wasn't even anything urgent either. It was
yeah.
just like he just had a question.
Yeah.
And it's like
Been there.
sometimes, I think sometimes you just need a reminder. Like, you don't like, sometimes just take your phone, turn it off, put it in the other room. It's like it's not necessary right now to have to be. You don't need to be on call. And if this was like a person, and I had this show up too before. I had a client that used to text me on the weekends or text me at night, and I would be, respond. I'm here to respond anytime. Like I'm just responding, and then
Wow.
eventually, I would just stop responding. I would respond back when I would, 8 o'clock
Yeah.
on Monday or something. And
Yep.
so, and then this client like stopped doing that. They stopped responding, asking me questions over the weekend and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you have to. It's almost like you have to be the one that sets the tone and the boundaries, because if you don't, like if you respond to that person after hours, then you've trained that person to go, hey, it's okay to text this person after hours because they always respond.
Right.
And so it's almost like it's self-inflicting, like you're inflicting it on yourself when you do respond. And anyway,
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to share that story, because it's that I think a lot of people have a tendency to be that way. And I know that's come from me, because when I was in special events, everything was an emergency. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
If I would get calls at 2 o'clock in the morning from,
Oh
production
goodness.
crew. Yeah, because it was production crews would be breaking down. I got a call because somebody accidentally ran a forklift through a window one time and broke them. Yeah,
Oh.
and it's like I'm getting these emergency. And one time I didn't answer because I was asleep, and I got like I felt like I was the most, like I was guilty for murder or something. Like my staff was so mad at me because I didn't answer the
How
call at like
dare
2
you
a.m.
sleep?
And it's like, they were like, I can't believe, I was just really surprised that you didn't answer the phone when we called. And it's like, but so that, um, what do you call it? Like, that's like kind of, it's faded over time, but that has like always carried with me for years. Even
Yeah.
after getting out of that business, there was always this like, immediate, you got to be like there. And there is 24 hours a day. You never know. Somebody might need something from you, even if it's in the middle of the night, you might get a call, kind of
Wow.
stuff. And so how do I'm
It's
just
hard
thinking
to
about people.
rest when you're worried that that could happen. Like, it's
Mm,
just, and that could definitely happen in the therapy field. But we're not working in we're not in working in the ER. We're outpatient therapists, and you
Mm,
weren't really working with emergencies. It wasn't life and death, though people acted like it was,
yeah, yeah.
you know. And
And by the way, this was when the business was fully staffed. I had general manager and everything, and I still had calls that like reached up to me, during
wow.
that time.